The United Nations Development Program denounced that the Israeli occupation in Gaza set back the development of the Strip by 60 years. In Belarus, the Central Election Commission reported that the attendance at the presidential polls 2025-2030 exceeded 75% hours before closing. And in Brazil, authorities received 88 Brazilian citizens deported by the United States government. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The United Nations Development Program denounced that the Israeli occupation of Gaza set back the development of the Strip by 60 years. The organization detailed that for the reconstruction of the infrastructures in the territory, tens of billions of dollars will be needed due to the fact that 70% of the buildings are completely damaged and affected by the bombardments. Furthermore, the economic system was totally destroyed after Israel razed the productive infrastructure and eliminated basic services in what experts describe as a loss of at least 60 years of development. In Yemen, Houthi forces unilaterally released 153 prisoners of war in coordination with the International Committee of the Red Cross. The National Committee for Prisoners' Affairs in Sana'a informed that most of those released are combatants captured in different battlefronts. It detailed that the measure, which includes humanitarian cases such as the sick, wounded, and the elderly, was also coordinated with the United Nations. The committee pointed out that the release coincides with UN and its team's efforts to advance in the humanitarian field and to comply with the agreements reached.
Facilitate the release of 153 detainees. We have conducted private interviews with them to verify their identities, that they are in contact with their families, and that they are ready to return to their homes.
A broad initiative to pardon and release 153 prisoners from the other side, who were captured on multiple battlefronts and from multiple governorates. It is a unilateral initiative from one side.
I am very happy to be released from prison. I spent 6 years there, and I thank everyone who contributed to our release from captivity, headed by Mr. Abdul Malik Badr al-Din al-Houthi. I also thank the Red Cross for its cooperation and response to us.
The Lebanese army denounced on Saturday the destruction of civilian infrastructure and the delay of Israeli troops in their withdrawal from the southern part of the territory. The Armed Forces Guidance Directorate condemned the demolition and burning of houses in border villages. Meanwhile, the Army Command reported delays in the implementation of several phases of the ceasefire agreement, complicating the Lebanese military deployment. A statement urged residents of the south of the country not to rush back to the border areas due to the presence of mines and other suspicious objects left behind by the Zionist army. Since last November 27th, when the cessation of hostilities came into force, the number of Israeli violations of the agreement has risen to almost 1,000, claiming the lives of more than 45 civilians in Lebanese territory. Also in Lebanon, Israeli forces killed at least 3 civilians and injured 31 others as people sought to return to their homes in the south of the country. The Lebanese Public Health Ministry reported the victims were from Hula, Blida, and Aitarun, areas still occupied by the Zionist army. The 60-day deadline set by the agreement for Israel to complete its withdrawal from Lebanese territory expired on Sunday. However, the extremist government of Benjamin Netanyahu said it would not pull out in time its forces, which have remained in Lebanon since the invasion launched on October 1st, 2024. U.S. President Donald Trump ordered the lifting of the veto on the supply of aerial bombs to Israel approved by the administration of former President Joe Biden. According to media, the Trump administration ordered the Pentagon to suspend the decree that prohibits the supply of 2,000 pounds of bombs to the Zionist regime. Likewise, sources clarified that in the next few days, at least 1,800 Mk-84 class aerial bombs that are in warehouses in the country will be loaded on ships and delivered to Israel. On their side, the Israeli forces retreated to the borders of the Gaza Strip, although they remain within its limits after reaching a ceasefire agreement with the Palestinian movement Hamas on January 15th. And the Syrian Civil Defense reported that 6 civilians were injured by the explosion of mines and bombs left over from the war in rural areas of the northern province of Idlib. 4 youth were injured when a mine exploded while they were removing debris from their home in southern Idlib. Likewise, 2 minors were injured in 2 separate explosions of a grenade and a cluster bomb, respectively, in the municipality of Arija. The Civil Defense reported that more than 30 people were killed and over 40 injured between late 2024 and early 2025 in explosions of objects left over from the armed conflict that erupted in 2011. The current scenario makes it difficult for displaced people to return to their homes and for agricultural land to be developed. We now have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Belarus, general elections move forward, with authorities reporting a 75.49% turnout so far. The Central Electoral Commission said that since the opening of the polls, the turnout of over 4.5 million citizens exceeded expectations. Almost 6 million citizens are called to participate in Sunday's election day. 486 international observers from 48 countries, in addition to 800 national and foreign journalists, are in country covering the day, which is running smoothly. Russia denounces at the United Nations war crimes committed by Ukraine against innocent civilians. Russia's permanent representative to the United Nations, Vasily Nebensia, condemned the systematic and flagrant violation of the principles of international and humanitarian law by Ukraine, where it has committed war crimes on a large scale. Nebensia said Kiev is trying to use its crimes to orchestrate a provocation in order to blame Russia of its actions. A Russian diplomat said Russian authorities have investigated and documented all cases of violence by Ukrainian soldiers against civilians, but he denounced that the only ones refusing to acknowledge the situation are Western countries. And the Serbian government confirmed that it will not impose sanctions against Russia despite pressure from Western nations. President Alexander Vučić denounced the Western pressure, which want to tell Serbia when and against whom to impose sanctions. During the founding event of the Movement for the People and the State, which gathers all patriotic forces of the Balkan country, Vučić reminded that it is up to the Serbian people and government to analyze the geopolitical situation and to decide on the matters concerning the nation. The head of state also reiterated that the most important issue for his country is its independence and asserted that Serbia follows the European path, but it will always maintain brotherly and friendly relations with Russia, China, and other friendly nations. Meanwhile, Italian railroad workers went on a general strike this Sunday to demand better salaries and other labor rights. The strike also denounces an increase in workload and reductions in salary, rest, and free time. In this context, the trade unions claim that for decades jobs have been downsized and production and service facilities closed. Among the personnel involved in this measure are maintenance workers, train drivers, conductors, and staff of the state railway group's operating rooms. The United Nations organization announced that on January 26, its Security Council will hold an extraordinary session to address the crisis facing the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Due to the complex situation in the African country, the meeting was brought forward since it was initially scheduled for January 27th. In the last hours, the conflict spread for the first time to the province of South Kivu, where the advance of the M23 caused the loss of human lives and the displacement of more than 250,000 people. In general, about 6 million deaths have accumulated in the African nation since 1998 due to the internal armed conflict, diseases, and famine. On Sunday, U.S. authorities reported at least 11 people killed as a result of a severe cold wave that hit the southeastern region of the country. The deaths were recorded in the states of Alabama, Georgia, Texas, and South Carolina, most of them due to the hypothermia and car accidents following landslides on the highways. In New Orleans, Louisiana, and part of the state of Florida, the cold storm brought the heaviest snowfall recorded in the last 130 years. In this sense, weather authorities issue an extreme cold warning from the state of Mississippi to the Florida Panhandle. We now have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. In Brazil, authorities received 88 Brazilian citizens reported by the United States government. The 88 Brazilians were received in a context of attention and security protocols by government authorities. Upon landing, the deportees arrived handcuffed and with their feet tied, but the federal police immediately released them, thus guaranteeing respect for sovereignty. Passengers were received and attended in the airport's restricted area. The government of Honduras announced that it is preparing to support the nationals deported from the United States as part of President Donald Trump's plans to carry out massive deportations of migrants. The Foreign Minister of Honduras, Enrique Reina, said that they will have to coordinate with the U.S. government everything necessary to receive the repatriated nationals in the most appropriate, humanitarian, and safe way. In this regard, he explained that President Xiomara Castro has defined the development of a program called Brother, Sister, Come Back Home, whose purpose is to provide returning Hondurans with certain resources to mobilize themselves, such as food and jobs. Mexico prepares a shelter in Tijuana to receive Mexicans deported from the United States due to Donald Trump's new policies. Authorities from the 3 levels of government visited the shelter facilities, which were equipped with basic spaces, plus a medical office and a module for processing birth certificates and job searches. The space has a capacity for approximately 2,600 people. For her part, the governor of the state of Baja California pointed out that the attention center will be exclusively for people repatriated by the policies signed by President Donald Trump.
It is a care center. The idea is not to keep them here for many days, but to take them immediately, as soon as possible, to their loved ones, to their families, to their places where they are waiting for them.
Meanwhile, in the United States, citizens took to the streets of Chicago to protest against the policies of President Donald Trump. During the massive mobilization, citizens reiterated their demands for causes they consider threatened by the president's administration, such as women's civil rights and liberties, including abortion, as well as the rights of the immigrant community, the LGBTIQ+ community, and the defense of the Palestinian cause. In this way, citizens, together with social organizations, urged the generation of solidarity actions on social justice issues to confront the measures promoted by the current government. In Argentina, a massive convention of the anti-fascist tribune of LGBTIQ+ people in Buenos Aires rejected President Javier Milei's homophobic speech. The concentration was held in Lezama Park, where hundreds of LGBTIQ+ people self-convened against Milei's speech, who asserted that the people of that sex-educative community are pedophiles. The head of state's speech at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, was based on strong attacks on what he considers to be the woke agenda, which included homophobic references that aroused rejection on social media. In this sense, it is expected that in different parts of the country, organizations that defend the rights of the LGBTIQ+ community will pronounce themselves on this matter. We have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.